the Khorne roster. CA have sent me this video of the units with close-ups and stats so we can take a look at what to expect of Khorne's units. We've seen this a little bit already. I did a video like this a few months ago when I got to play the survival battle thing, but we'll have a look through again. There's some new units in here too. So Exalted Bloodthirster first of all. A tier 3 damage dealer infantry. They've got this ability Hellblade, which is enabled when they've killed more than 80 troops. They get a damage boost, so the more they kill, the more killy they get. Nice armor-piercing weapon strength, anti-infantry, fire and magical damage. Some resistances, and they're a demon, so they won't rout and run away. Gonna be a nice piece of damage dealer infantry for Khorne up on that front line. Of course, there's an unexalted version, or just the normal Bloodletters, who are going to be kind of similar, but just not quite as good, I think. Moving right along here, we've got the Chaos Warriors of Khorne, Halberds. Basically the same as what we have already in Warhammer 2 with the Warriors of Chaos Halberds, but they have Frenzy, so they're a little bit more damage dealer, and they also have the Charge Reflect ability, which is new to Warhammer 3, where if they're braced and a unit charges into them, they will do damage to said unit. And I believe that damage is to large or infantry, so anything that charges into them when they're braced is going to take some extra damage from that bracing, so just a nice tough anti-large unit, same as the Warriors of Chaos Halberds. Going to be interesting to see how that charge reflection really plays into these units though. They have said it's not completely final, so that may get taken out of the game if it's a bit too OP, so we'll see over time. We've also got the Chaos Warriors of Khorne, dual weapons. So these are another damage dealer troop. They're tougher than the Bloodletters, but they will rout and run away as they're not demons, but they're a big damage dealer, decent weapon strength, melee attack. Not armor piercing though, do have a bonus versus infantry, so they're going to be a good choice to bring against those lighter factions, and you'll be able to chew through their front line pretty easy. They do have Frenzy as well, so just massive damage dealers. And then we have the Chaos Spawn of Khorne. Pretty much your usual Chaos Spawn, nothing new here really. Good weapon strength, non-armor piercing though, unbreakable, but they will go into Rampage potentially. So these can be a bit of a fire and forget unit as they don't have a lot of armor or melee defense. They will take damage reasonably quickly, and that means they'll probably go into Rampage reasonably quickly. So you might not be able to do a lot with them, but they'll be good for tying things up and holding things down as they are unbreakable. So mostly just a reskin of an existing Warhammer 2 unit, but it's a nice addition to the roster. Chaos Spawn can certainly have their use. And to another reskin, the Minotaurs of Khorne, great weapons. So these are the anti-large Minotaurs of the Beastmen. Armor piercing as well, obviously, and they do have a pretty beefy charge bonus at 50 actually, so maybe they benefit a bit more from being charged around more than the other Minotaurs, the normal Minotaurs of the Beastmen. But as you might expect with Khorne, like everything, they're just a pretty chunky damage dealer, ready to take out all the cavern monsters that the enemy can throw at you. And then we have, moving along, a non-reskinned unit, but basically just Warhounds to be honest. It's the Flesh Hounds. They're very fast, but they're much bigger than Warhounds, so they're a bit chunkier, they hit a bit harder, they survive a little better. They do cause fear and have a physical resistance and a spell resistance too, and they're demons, so they won't rout and run away like most doggos. So they're a nice addition for Khorne to give him some kind of fast mobility to chase after missiles and skirmish cavs or whatever they need to. Because overall his army is maybe a little slow in places. Some of the Chaos Warriors and things are quite heavy. The other cavalry aren't too fast, so these are going to be the much faster option that you might need if you want to get a quick flank on to disrupt some missiles or whatever. Moving along, guess what? It's another reskin. It's the Gore Beast Chariot. Nothing too special or different with this thing. Pretty much the same unit. Does have Frenzy though, so just a big, beefy, hard-hitting damage dealer chariot. Keep it moving, keep it charging around through infantry, and it'll just go nutso. So another nice piece of mobility for Khorne, albeit one that we've had for a long time and that we know all about. Something fresh though, something truly fresh. The Blood Crushers of Khorne, a big, chunky, hard-hitting, heavy, unroutable cavalry because they're classed as demonic because of their Bloodletter riders. These boys look pretty fun. Big weapon strength, armor piercing, anti-infantry, magic attacks as well, nice charge bonus. They're going to be all about that hammer and anvil, I would imagine. They're not too fast at only 62 speed because they are pretty chunky. They have that Hellblade ability, so they'll get even stronger the more they kill. They're reasonably tough as well, with decent armor and not bad melee defense, as they are actually classed as a melee cavalry. They're not a shock cavalry, so they're not supposed to cycle charge as much, but they do have a pretty good charge bonus all the same, so they can if they want to. But they are peasants in comparison to the almighty Skull Crushers. These boys bring the chunk. 130 armor, shield, decent melee defense, big armor piercing weapon strength, and even bigger charge bonus. They are just a massive damage dealer. They do have Frenzy as well, so there's even more damage to be had there. These are going to be absolutely disgusting, especially on the rear charge. I look forward to smashing some elves to death with these. Could be a nice combo with Bloodletter Infantry, as they'll be unbreakable. They can hold stuff for a long time. You get these around the back, and then it's GG, pretty much. And then we've got one of the few ranged units, the Skull Cannon. So this thing is an artillery with 380 range, 465 armor-piercing damage. That is pretty beefy. An okay amount of ammo, but not loads, but they can go into melee. They've got decent weapon strength, anti-infantry, armor-piercing. They are a chariot, though, so they don't want to stay in melee with only 18 melee defense. They will get taken out pretty quick. But you can kind of use this thing just as a chariot if you want to, because it can fire whilst moving. So you can move up to the enemy, take a few shots, charge through with a nice kind of chariot-style charge, and then come out the other side, turn around, shoot them once, and then charge in again. It does recharge its ammo as well. You can see replenishes ammo when it's in melee, and also has regeneration when it's in melee. Has a bunch of resistances as well, so it could be a real nightmare to get rid of, and it's demonic, so it's not going to be easy to just get off the field in a hurry. So you could sit back and just use it as an artillery piece if you want to, but eventually you'll need to get it back into melee to start replenishing that ammo, so you can really get the most out of it. Moving on, we have... what the fuck is this? And then we have the Blood Shrine of Khorne, a model I hadn't seen until now. This thing is designed to be a bit of a support unit to help your frontline units, I suppose, be a bit more effective. It is okay in melee itself. It's got some damage, armor piercing, anti-infantry, fire and magic damage, but with only 18 melee defense, it's quite vulnerable itself. However, when it is in melee, it will regenerate, so it can keep itself alive that way. But the buff it brings is the Totem of Endless Bloodletting, so melee attack and leadership to nearby units. Doesn't have to be in melee for that, so it can just sit behind the front line and add that little buff on. It could go into melee against lower tier troops where it won't take too much damage with its pathetic melee defense, so a good support unit with a little bit of damage output as well. If a little bit of damage output doesn't sound very Khorne to you, then might I interest you in something a little bit more capable, shall we say? The Soul Grinder of Khorne. First of all, its missile strength is absolutely huge at 800 armor-piercing missile strength with 120 goddamn range. But it also has a whopping 500 weapon strength as well, which again, armor piercing, fire, magic. It's a powerhouse. So you could use it at range at first to use up a bit of its pretty large amount of ammo, but even when it does get into melee, it does fire whilst moving, so it should be able to still use its ammo while it's smashing people in the face with its massive fiery sword. So all in all, it's going to kill everything. Which is pretty much the case of all of the Soul Grinders. We know that Tzeentch has one, which probably means that Nurgle and Slaanesh are going to get one too. But the Khorne one just seems about raw damage output and just murdering everything. So I look forward to building the double Soul Grinder Khorne armies in multiplayer. And it's just one of the quite few single entities that the Khorne army has. We have that Blood Shrine that we saw just now. We have the Skull Cannon. We have the Bloodthirsters, which we'll see in a second. So lots of single entities for the Khorne army, all about that damage output. And then we have a hero, a Blood Reaper on a... I guess that's a Blood Shrine mount, but not quite as shiny. But it makes him pretty quick anyway at 68 speed. Has okay weapon strength, armor piercing, anti-infantry, but nothing to write home about. Does have some abilities, some usual stuff. Foe Seeker, Deadly Onslaught. But we do have some unique abilities. Locus of Abjuration gives spell resistance by a fair chunk to an area, so that'll help groups of troops out, helping them survive a little bit better, especially against someone like Tzeentch, who has a ton of magic. He does have that Hellblade ability as well, so once he's killed 80 troops, he will get a damage buff, making him even more effective in the melee. And because of, I assume, the mount, he also has regeneration when he's fighting in melee, so he's going to be tougher than he looks, should be fairly tanky. Has that same buff that the Blood Shrine had with melee attack and leadership, so you can get that same kind of deal, but just in a hero form. Got the resistances, is a demon, so he's not going to rout and run away. A nice hero option, a good support unit, perhaps. More so than most of the other units in the Khorne army, as they're all just about killing everything for the most part. Very little of it is about supporting the troops. Only a couple of units have these kind of support abilities. And then we got the big chunky boy. Once we scroll up, scroll it, baby, scroll it. Somebody get this guy a new mouse wheel, Jesus. Needs a G502 for that infinite spin. Bloodthirster. He's a big damage dealer, flying unit, lots of melee attack, lots of weapon strength, anti-large as well, so he's going to be one of our anti-large units, nice and mobile as well. He'll be able to get after things quick. He's got fear and terror as well, which he'll be able to make good use of flying around. He can terrorize those weak units in the right moment. So he's going to be the one to take on all the other single entity monsters, or maybe dive in on the cavalry as well. He'll be good at killing lords and heroes if they happen to be on mounts and classed as large, so he's going to be pretty dangerous, one to watch out for. He does have that toggle fly button as well though, so if he does look a little bit in danger in the air, if he's getting sniped at, or if there's a couple of dragons coming after him and 2v1ing him or 3v1ing him, he can take to the ground where he'll be a little bit safer. And then we have the Exalted Bloodthirster as well. This is a Lord option, I believe, and he's pretty much the same deal, just an absolute damage freaking nightmare. Doesn't have the bonus versus large though, so that's not his primary target. Has a bunch of damage boosting abilities for himself. Does have a breath attack as well, which says magic missile, but it's probably going to be like a breath attack. Burning rage, there's an explosion, so he does have kind of a bit of magic in that way. It's probably around him though, more to help him get out of trouble. So overall, just a big, powerful flying lord, similar to Scarbrand, of course, who will probably be better in different ways, and both are going to be big damage dealers. And you've got the normal Bloodthirster if you want some more anti-large, which should make him a little bit cheaper as he's not the Exalted version. So we should have some nice anti-large there for Khorne, because otherwise we've only got the Halberds, who are going to be quite slow and aren't really going to be able to keep up with a lot of mobile large units. So Bloodthirster is probably going to be quite important for Khorne. He does have that ability there, Wrath of Khorne, which says it can blow up enemy spellcasters' spells in their own face. So you can actually kind of use their magic against them. Not quite sure how it worked from the unit card, we'll have to see, but that sounds like a really cool ability. And of course, Khorne hates the magic, so why not make it blow up in their face? I guess it's kind of like forcing an overcast or something, because that's an explosion that does damage, but we'll have to see when it comes out. I look forward to finding out all the little intricacies of all these factions. We do have the faction unique abilities on the right as well, which we'll get to. There's that first ability I kind of missed. So that gives us speed boosts and kind of a damage boost, but the speed boost especially could make him pretty terrifying, having him rolling up on you in a hurry. Now to the faction abilities, you can see on the right we've got the 3 buttons, and I believe all Chaos factions have these. I know Tzeentch does, so it would make sense if they all did. The first one is a melee attack buff to an area, so that's kind of like a WAR basically. You're going to get a WAR for the first one. And then we've got an invincibility augment essentially for an area, which will stop units dying in that aura for 20 seconds. That is pretty powerful. And then for the last one, we just have a big explosion. So kind of does have magic in that way, but obviously we're not using the winds of magic, so it's not quite the same. And it says points are generated for each enemy killed. So you just have to kill loads of stuff, and then you unlock those abilities. Khorne army, nice and simple in that way. So there it is, the Khorne roster, not quite in its full, but this is a bunch of the units. We get a good idea of what we can expect from the Khorne army with this. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. See you in the future.